Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video I want to talk about a very important topic called structures, and I will show you how you can build very interesting program. And then, considering that you always ask me to give you an example that you can use to practice on your own, at the end of this video I have a perfect example that is going to serve as a test for your knowledge. But don't just skip to that part, because it is important for you to watch the entire video so that you can get the knowledge necessary in order to solve that task. And then also, for those of you that use Instagram, please take a screenshot of your code or take a picture of this video and put it to your story and write something like learning programming with through CodeBeauty or learning C++ with through CodeBeauty, and don't forget to tag me, because then I will be able to see your story, and I love watching your stories. So I will have a link of my Instagram profile in the description of this video, and then Twitter as well for those of you that don't use Instagram. So without further ado, let's start with today's video. As I said, in this video I want to talk about structures, and for those of you that are familiar with the way that I teach, you already know that I don't like to give definitions, but I prefer to give you a real-life example because that is much better for understanding. So that is going to be the case for this video as well. That is how I'm going to explain what are structures. And in order to be able to understand what are structures, you first need to understand what are basic or built-in data types. And by this, I mean data types like integer and float and double and bool and character and so on. So if you are not familiar with those, I will link a video here and in the description down below as well, where you can watch everything that you need to know about data types, and then you can come back to this video and learn about structures. Now, for those of you that are familiar with those basic built-in data types, I'm going to say that structures are a little bit more complex data type. In what way? Well, they are not built-in, but they are user-defined data type. Now, let me show you on code and on real-life example what I mean by this, what I mean by user-defined data type. So let's say, for example, that you want to store the name of your smartphone in your program. In order to do that, you would have to create a variable of type string and then call it name or smartphone name. I'm going to say name in this case. And then here I'm going to assign iPhone 12, like this. Okay. Now, let's create another variable. Let's say, for example, that we also want to store the information about how much storage space this iPhone 12 has. So I will create a variable of type int, call it storage space. And here I will say, for example, 32 gigabytes, although I might be completely wrong with this one. I have no idea. It is probably more, something like 64 or 128. So feel free to correct me in the comments down below, but just don't be too harsh. Okay, and let's create another variable also of type string, and let's call it color. And I will say that this iPhone will be black, like this. Okay, and let's do the last one, which is going to be float price. Okay, and here I will say that this iPhone 12 costs, for example, $999.99. Again, I have no idea and I might be completely wrong, and it is probably more something like this. I don't know. So please comment the current price of iPhone 12 if you're watching the video now, and then if you're watching it 3 or 4 years since I published it, please comment the current price of iPhone 12 so that we have documentation or history of the price of iPhone 12 going down. Okay, so I will delete this. I will say that this is some sort of budget iPhone or something like that. Okay, so here I have created 4 variables: name, storage space, color, and price. And they all describe a smartphone, which is in this situation an iPhone that has 32 gigabytes of storage space. It is black and it costs $999.99. Now, what is going to happen if I want to describe another smartphone? Well, using the knowledge that we have so far, I would have to copy these variables here. So I will do that. I will copy this and then paste it here. And here I will say name2, and then storage space 2, and color 2, and price 2. Okay. Now, here, instead of iPhone 12, I will say, for example, Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, like this. And let's say, for example, that Samsung has 64 gigabytes of memory and it is gray, and it costs, for example, $888.88. Okay, and while we are talking about this, please write me your answer in the comments down below. Which one do you prefer, iPhone or Samsung? I am very, very interested to read what you are going to answer to this question. Now, with that being said, I also want to tell you about a problem that I see with this code here, and that problem is following. Imagine if we wanted to describe 2 more smartphones, or 200 smartphones, or 2,000 smartphones. Then we would have very, very big problem, because using the approach that we used so far, in order to describe 1,000 smartphones, for example, we would have to copy this 1,000 times. So at the end, we would have name 1,000 and storage space 1,000 and color 1,000 and price 1,000 and so on. And that would become very hard to maintain very, very soon. So that means that this approach here is not optimal, and there is a better approach to solve this problem here. Now, what is that approach? Well, wouldn't it be very cool if we could group all of these variables here, because after all, they are part of one logical collection. They all describe the same thing, which is a smartphone. So name, storage space, color, price, they all describe a smartphone in this situation. So can we define our own data type called smartphone? The answer to that question is yes, we can. And that is going to be user-defined data type, which is also called structure. So how can we create a structure? How can we create our own user-defined data type? Well, it's pretty simple. You put struct keyword, and then you give the name to your structure. And in this situation, I will call it smartphone, like this. And then you put curly brackets, and at the end you need to have semicolon. It is very important to have this semicolon at the end. Okay, now here I have created a smartphone structure, but it is empty, as you can see. And what I want to put inside these curly brackets here, well, I want to put all of the variables that describe a smartphone. I want to put all of the attributes that describe a smartphone. And here we have defined 4, so name, storage space, color, and price. So I will put those here. I will say that every smartphone has name of type string, like this, and then it also has storage space, which is going to be of type int, like this, and then let's say string color and float price. Okay. Now here we have created 4 attributes that describe this structure here, and you can create many more if you want. So you can create attributes that say what kind of battery this smartphone has, what kind of CPU, and then size of display, and whether it has wireless charging or not, and so on. So you can recognize and define your own attributes, your own members for this structure here. But here I have 4, which is going to be enough for this example. And then one very important thing that I want you to notice is that this structure here, there is no data. We don't assign data to these attributes here like we did here. Why? Well, because this here does not represent data. This structure here actually represents a blueprint. This structure will serve as a model every time that we want to create a variable of type smartphone. So when we decide that we want to create a variable of type smartphone, this structure here will say, hey, your smartphone needs to have a name, a storage space, a color, and a price. So this structure here is a blueprint. Now, your question might be, okay, Saldina, how can we create a variable of type smartphone? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It is actually the same as if you wanted to create a variable of type integer or character or something like that. So first you specify the type, and then you give the name to your variable. So let's do that same thing with our smartphone variable. So I'm going to say the type, which is smartphone, like this, and then I will give the name to my variable, and let's call it smartphone, like this. Only use this lowercase s because it is not going to allow you to use capital S here, because that is already reserved for this structure here. Okay, so I will use lowercase s, and this is going to work because C++ is case-sensitive language, which means that it distinguishes between lowercase and uppercase letters, and that means that these two things will be two different things for your compiler, because this has lowercase s and then this here has uppercase s, even though they both say smartphone. Okay, now your question might be, how can I define all of these values here? So how can I define the name of the smartphone and its storage space and color and price? Well, the answer to that question is pretty simple. So you put the name of your variable, so smartphone, like this. So this is the name of the variable, and then this here is the name of the type or structure. And then if you are using Visual Studio, after you put this dot here, you will get a list of all of the attributes of that smartphone, and this list here is alphabetically ordered, so color, name, price, and storage space. So let's define name first. I will say that name is equal to iPhone 12. Let me copy this actually. Okay, like this. And then let's define storage space. I will say smartphone dot storage space is equal to 32, and let's copy this 2 more times. Here I will say color, and color is black. Let's copy this. Okay, and then the last one is price, and price is 999.99. Okay, so with this, we have successfully created a variable of type smartphone that has these attributes here, and the values of those attributes are here. And this is how we assign the values to the attributes of this user-defined data type. Now, this here means that we can delete this part of the code here because we don't need it anymore, because we literally have created the same thing here. So I will delete it. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to do this same thing for our Samsung Galaxy smartphone. So let's create another variable of type smartphone, and in this situation I will call it smartphone2. Okay, and then here I will say, let me copy this. Okay, so I will say smartphone2.name will be Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, like this, and then smartphone2.storage space will be 64, and then smartphone2.color will be gray. Okay, and then smartphone2.price is going to be 888.88. Okay, so after we have done this, I can delete this part here as well. Okay. Now with this code here, we have created two variables of type smartphone, this one here and then this one here. And what I want to do now is I want to write out this data that we have here and then this data that we have here. So let's do that. Let's say cout, and then I will say here name, and then what I want to do, what I want to write out will be this name here. So the name of my first smartphone. So I will just copy this part here like this. So again, you put the name of your variable and then you put the name of the attribute of that structure that you want to access. In this situation, that is going to be name. Okay, and then let's add end line. Okay, and now I'm going to copy this line 4 times. So here I want to write out storage space. So storage space, and then smartphone, and instead of writing out name attribute, I will write out storage space like this, and then let's add gigabytes like this. Okay, and then this third line will be color, so I will say color, and then here color, and then this last one will be for price. So let's say price is equal to smartphone dot price, like this. Perfect. So if I run this program, as you can see here, we have name is iPhone 12, and then storage space is 32 gigabytes, and color is black, and price is $999.99. Okay, let's close this. And for this second smartphone, you can do this same block of code here. So you can literally copy this part here and then paste it. And instead of writing out smartphone.name, you can write out smartphone2.name and then smartphone2.storage space and smartphone2.color and so on. But I want to show you something else, and that is going to be how you can use functions in combination with structures. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with functions at all, I recommend you to watch my video related to functions, or actually a playlist, which I will link here and in the description of this video as well. And there you can find everything that you need to know and learn about functions in C++. But for those of you that already are familiar with functions or that have watched that playlist that I mentioned, I will just say that the main goal that we are creating and using functions is to make our code reusable, so that we can, instead of copying our code, we can invoke that function and have that behavior that we desire. And in this situation, what I want to achieve is I want to create a function that is going to write or print all of the information about a smartphone, whether it is this smartphone or any other smartphone. If we decide to create 10 smartphones or 1,000 smartphones, we can just invoke that function and we can say, hey, here is a smartphone, please print out the data that is related to that smartphone. So as I said, I want to create a function, and let's do it here. Here I will say that the function will be of return type void, so I will say void, and then let's call that function print smartphone info. So print smartphone info. I hope that I didn't make any typo. Okay, so what I want to do inside this function is basically this part here, so this code here. So I will just delete it from here, and then I will paste it here inside my function. So now, as you can see, this function here prints out the name of a smartphone and then storage space and color and price. And here we have an error which says identifier smartphone is undefined, which means, hey, I don't know what is this smartphone here because I have my own scope, which is from this curly bracket until this curly bracket here, and I don't have any variable which is called smartphone. Now, what we want to achieve with this function is we want to pass a smartphone as a parameter or argument to this function, and then we want that function to write out all the data about that smartphone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass a structure here. So I will say smartphone like this, and then I will give the name to this parameter, and that will be smartphone. I want to use this name here because we already have it in the code. If you wanted, for example, to use a different name for this parameter, if you wanted to say, for example, my smartphone, you would have to use this name here, and then here, and here, and here as well. But I'm going to return it to smartphone because it looks more professional. So I will say that this function here receives one parameter of type smartphone, which is called smartphone. And here it just writes out the name, the storage space, color, and price of that smartphone. Now, considering that we have created this function here, that means that we can invoke it and pass it any smartphone that we want, and it should print the data of that smartphone. So let's do that. Let's say print smartphone info like this, and if I open these parentheses, as you can see, it says that it receives one parameter of type smartphone. So let's pass it this one. Let's say smartphone like this. Okay, and then let's invoke this same function for this second smartphone. So I'm just going to copy it, but instead of passing it smartphone variable, I will pass it this variable here. So I will say smartphone 2. Okay, and if I run my program now, let's see what will happen. Okay, here we have information about our first smartphone, which is iPhone, 32 gigabytes, black, and then almost $1,000. And then this second smartphone, which is Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, which has 64 gigabytes, it is gray, and it costs 888.88. And that is something that we have achieved using this function here, which we defined here, as you can see. So that is how you pass a structure to your function. So the approach is the same as if you wanted to pass any other parameter. And again, if you're not familiar with passing parameters to functions or functions in general, I will have that playlist linked in the description of this video, so make sure to watch that, and then you will understand how functions work in detail. Now, considering that we have been talking about structures in this video, I want to show you something else. So let's create one more structure. Let's create a structure called person, and I will do that here. So I'm going to say struct, and let's call it person, like this, and then again curly brackets and then semicolon at the end. And here I will put all of the attributes, or at least some attributes that describe a person. And I will say, for example, that a person has name, like this, that is going to be of type string. And then I will say that a person has age, for example. Again, here you can add many more attributes that describe a person, things like date of birth, place where this person lives, and then his or hers gender, whether this person is married or not, what kind of job they do, and so on. But I will use just these two, and then I want to add one more, and that is going to be, I want to store the information about what kind of smartphone this person has. So I want to say that every person owns a smartphone, and then I want to store that data about what kind of smartphone that specific person has. So I will create another attribute here, and that will be smartphone, like this, and let's call it smartphone but with lowercase s, like this. So with this we have successfully created another structure which is called person, and that person structure has three attributes, and those are name, age, and then what kind of smartphone that person has. So how can I create a variable of this structure here? Let's do that. Let's say here person, like this, and I'm going to call this person P, for example. So here I have created a variable of type person, and that variable is called P. Now what I want to do is I want to assign values to these attributes here. So name, age, and smartphone. And let's do that. Here I will say P dot, and then again, if you're using Visual Studio, you will get help from IntelliSense, which is going to give you all of these attributes that a person has. Those are age, name, and smartphone. So I will say P dot name is going to be equal to Saldina, like this, and then P dot age will be 26. Okay, and then P dot smartphone. Here I need to assign a variable of type smartphone. So let me choose which one. This one or this one. Which one would you choose? Please write me that in the comments down below. And for this occasion, I will go with this smartphone too. So Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra. Please don't judge me. Okay, so here I have created a variable of type person called P, and then I have assigned values to its attributes. So Saldina, age 26, and then smartphone will be this variable here. So smartphone 2. Okay, now what I want to do with this person is I want to create another function like this one here that is going to print all of the informations about a person. So let's do that here. So let's say void print person info, like this. Okay, and here I want to pass a structure which will be person structure. So I will say, hey, this function here will receive a parameter of type person, and I will call it person or P or something like that. Okay, and what I want to do inside this function is I want to say cout, and then name will be person, okay, person dot name, like this, and then add end line, okay, and then I want to do that same thing for age. So I will say age will be person dot age, And then, considering that this person here has smartphone as well, I know that I have this function here that already writes out information about a smartphone. So what I can do is I can invoke this function here inside this function here. So I can say print smartphone info like this. And as you can see, this function expects a variable of type smartphone. So what I want to pass to this function will be person.smartphone. Perfect. Okay, so with this, we have reused this code here multiple times. So let's invoke this function here in our main function. So I want to invoke it here. I will say print person info. And then here I want to pass a variable of type person, any person. We have only this one, which is called P. So I will say print person info and then pass P. Okay, and before I run my program, let me comment these two lines so that we can see output of this function only. So if I run my program now, as you can see, we get name, which is our username or our person name, that is Saldina, age is 26, and then this name here, which represents the name of our smartphone, is Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, and then storage space is 64, color gray, and price is 888.88. Okay, let's stop this. Perfect. Now, what happens if I decide to change a smartphone? For example, what happens if I decide to ditch this Samsung Galaxy and to buy this smartphone here, so iPhone 12? Well, I would say here, smartphone, so I just change it on one place, and then if I run my program again, as you can see, we get different output. So it is again Saldina and then 26, but this time we have a different smartphone, and that is iPhone 12, 32 gigabytes, black, and then $1,000. Okay, perfect. Now, one thing that I promised you in the beginning of this video is that I will give you a task that you can use to practice on your own. This is something that has been requested in many videos that I published so far. And guys, even though I cannot manage to answer to all of your comments and all of your requests, I do read all of your comments, and this is something that has been repeated in multiple comments. So here it is. I decided to create a perfect test for your knowledge. So this here is going to be a perfect test of the knowledge that you have gained so far. So in order to solve this task, you will not use only the knowledge from this video, but you will need to combine the knowledge from my multiple videos, and I will link that in the description down below, all of those videos. So make sure to watch them all and understand them, and it is going to be perfectly okay and perfectly normal if you need to rewatch some videos multiple times, and then if it takes you multiple hours or days or even weeks to solve this problem, because this here is going to be perfect test of your programming knowledge and of your understanding of programming. And then another thing is that once you solve this problem, please paste your code in the comments down below. And then one thing that I would like to encourage is to create a discussion about that code in the comments down below. So you can take someone else's code and try to review that code. Try to understand it and run it in your Visual Studio and try to make improvements to that code, because that is going to be the best way to learn. Because if you start working for any company, chances are that you will not be working alone and you will have a team. So you will need to read and understand other people's code and you will need to review it. So it is better to prepare for that now. So again, once you solve this problem or just part of this problem, please put it in the comments down below and then try to help other people, try to give them advice on how they can improve their code and then what things can be done better or in a different way and so on. So let me write the code of the program that I want you to build, and then I will be back to show you how that program should behave. So here I have built a quiz app, as you can see, and then I have hidden code so that you cannot see it, because this is going to be a test for you. So I will not show you the code, I will only show you how this app should behave. So the idea is to build a quiz application that has 5 questions. You can create application that has 500 questions if you want, but in order to prove that you understand how this problem should be solved, it is going to be enough to create just 5 questions. So you have a quiz application that has 5 questions, and each one of those questions will give you 3 offered answers. 2 of those 3 answers will be incorrect, and then 1 will be correct. And your user will have to give his own response, and he will have to choose between those 3 answers, and then you write out the information to your user if he chose the correct or the incorrect answer. So let's run this application so that you can see how it works. Okay, so as I said, here is the question: what is the smallest country? And then you get 3 answers: USA, India, and then Vatican City. 2 of those 3 are incorrect, and then 1 is correct. So as you can see, it asks me to choose between 1 and 3, so 1 or 2 or 3. And I will say that the smallest country is 3, so Vatican City. And if I press enter, as you can see, we get correct. Okay, and then it asks second question. So what is the biggest animal in the world? Elephant, blue whale, or great white shark? Well, let's say, for example, that the biggest animal is elephant, so 1. Okay, and that is incorrect. And then you get the third question, and so on. So this is the application that I want you to build. And here I want to give you a few tips that will be useful for you in order to build this application. So if you take a look at this quiz application, you should notice a few things. The first one is that question is going to be a structure. And that structure, that question structure, will have 2 members, at least 2. So the first one will be text of that question, and then second will be an array of 3 answers. Now, if you are not familiar with arrays, I will recommend you to watch my video related to arrays, which I will link in the description down below, and then here probably. So again, each structure of type question contains text of that question and then an array of 3 answers. 2 of those 3 answers will be incorrect, and then 1 will be correct. Okay, and then another thing that you should notice is that answer is a structure as well. Now, this here is an answer, and then this here, and this here, and this here as well, and so on. So each answer should have the text of that answer, and then in the background you should store the information if that answer is correct or not, so if it is true or false. Now, another tip that I want to give you will be related to writing out these questions and then answers that belong to that specific question. In order to do that, you will need to learn again arrays, and then you will need to learn about loops. I recommend you to learn about for loop and then nested for loop as well, and those videos will be linked in the description as well. So I will make a group where I will link all the videos necessary for you to watch and understand in order to build this program here. So you write out the question, and then for each question you write out the array of 3 answers that that question has, and then again you do that same thing for the second question and for the third, fourth, fifth, and so on. So this application here is going to be a perfect test of your programming knowledge and of your understanding of programming. And this application is something that you can even put to your portfolio for your first job. So you can say to your employer, hey, here is this very cool application that I built. It is quiz application. And then there are many ways that you can upgrade this application. So you can, for example, add points to this application. You can add multiple users. You can add levels. You can add certain money prices and so on. But that can come up later when you progress with your programming knowledge. And who knows, maybe one day your application reaches millions of people and your application earns millions of dollars. So a lot of people and a lot of money. So I wish you a good luck with solving this problem here and building this quiz application. And again, it is going to be perfectly normal if it takes you multiple hours or days or weeks, depending on how much of programming you have learned so far. And it will also take you knowledge from multiple videos that I mentioned, which I will link in the description down below as well. And then you will also have to think and try to come up with your own ways to solve a specific problem, because that is what programmers do. It is not just copying and pasting code and understanding certain basic concepts. It is more about connecting those concepts together and then trying to find a way, an approach to solve a specific problem. So again, I wish you good luck with solving this problem, and then put your code in the comments down below if you solve this problem or if you solve a part of this problem, and try to review code of other people. And also, if you think that I should make a video where I solve this problem together with you, please write that in the comments down below as well if you want my solution. So thank you very much for watching, and I am going to see you in my next video. Bye!